Good morning, I'm Doug Smith, and welcome to the 14 December 2012 edition of Portsmouth This Week. My special guests today are the new President and Vice President, respectively, of the Town Council, Jim Seveny and John Blaze. Welcome, gentlemen. I really appreciate being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Jim, just to start with you, but please, John, join in any time here. There are a bunch of issues out there. Let me start with the wind turbine, which is one that's kind of near and dear to my heart. But,
sure.
What do you think? Is there any possible outcome here that doesn't look too bad for the town on the wind turbine?
Well, it's a little bit early to say, but I think there is a positive outcome. I will say that I don't think it's going to be the revenue stream over the long term that we had all hoped.
Understand that now, yeah.
You know, but we've gone out with 2 RFPs soliciting private parties types of approaches where the town would turn over the operational aspects of the wind turbine and try to get out of that business directly. I think we've all found that's just too hard. If everything goes right, it's a great life, but if something goes wrong, you scramble for how to deal with that. Yeah. So we want to go down a private parties agreement route and get somebody who's more technically qualified to run it.
Sure.
And we've got to figure out the economics. The latest RFP, there were 4 responding proposals. They're going through them now. We have both legal and technical experts who are helping us try to assess what the best deal is for the town, and that'll be unfolding. Or in January we should hear what those proposals look like, the pros and cons, and we'll get that out in a meeting format as quickly as we can, so everyone can have an idea what the path looks like.
Okay. As I say, there are a bunch of issues out there. I think pension reform is in everybody's mind as we watch the court case proceed up in Providence.
Right.
I guess my question would be, how bad is our situation in town regarding the pension liability, and what do we do to try to fix it?
Well, my perspective on it is a little bit different from some of the dialogue that's taken place. By definition, we are considered to be in crisis because when we changed our return on investment assumption on the pension fund, we reduced it. We were at 8%, which I think was generally agreed that was too high of an assumption. But we moved it all the way down to 6.75. And that was done, I think, with not enough analysis on the implications on what that would cost the town to reduce it like that. But we did it, and once we did that, we went from 60% funded level down to something closer to 50%.
So that put us in the red zone.
That puts you in the red zone by the state's definition.
Yeah.
The sky is not falling. The town has never, ever missed one of the required pension fund payments, the annual payments, ARCs they call them, the annual required contributions. And we'll continue down that path. I mean, we will budget to make sure that we can cover that. There could be some changes coming from what's going on. I'll tell you one big change, and this is certainly something that John can weigh in on, is one of the major stakeholders in this whole dialogue was left completely out of the analysis so far, and that's the unions themselves.
Really?
We're coming up on the end of the union contracts for both police and fire, and DPW as well. So the negotiations have already started, and one of the things that I want to see is that the union leadership be brought into the discussion so they can help us figure out.
Absolutely.
How do we fix this, fairly to everybody. Certainly the taxpayer, who's been bearing the brunt of most of the investment risk associated with the pension fund. How do we level that and make it fair for everybody, including the unions?
Yeah.
I think it's important when we get into negotiations with the unions coming up, instead of talking at them, talking with them. Certainly there's enough leadership in the unions to understand that, hey, look, we have a bit of a situation here, and we're looking for your help.
Yeah.
And I think they understand that. I mean, you start looking at unions across the country, especially in Rhode Island. They're coming to the table. They understand the pension and other things are a high priority, and most times they're willing to negotiate. They're willing to talk, reasonably with management. And I think this is the case that'll happen in Portsmouth.
Yeah, I think obviously some kind of a negotiated settlement between the unions and the town and would be the way to do this thing if you possibly can.
Right.
Speaking of budgets, though, you guys, it seems like a fact of life here in Portsmouth that council completes one budget and then they almost immediately have to go into the next budget.
Right.
One of the reasons for that is we have annual budget requirements. I just wondered if anybody's ever thought about maybe coming up with a 2-year budget cycle where you budget for this year and the next year out, and then you can change it going forward, but at least it gives you something that's already, because I guess the problem is we're just going to, there's so much work done on the budget that it's almost like it's very difficult for you guys to have to take care of other things too.
Right, right. Well, I mean, we're required to send budgetary projections. I believe it's out 5 years to the state. But when it comes right down to it, the next annual budget cycle is where all the focus is, and part of that is because you don't really know, primarily with the external revenue streams, state aid and all that. They only do it a year at a time too. So,
Yeah, that is a problem.
So you can get into some discussions and that leads quickly to speculation on what you may or may not get. It's still not a bad idea to at least have an operating framework more than 1 year. I mean, that's been a frustration for councils forever, is that we are focused on just next year. And I'll put in a plug for the Economic Development Committee, too. That's the group that needs to be the thought leaders, further out on the horizon line, out to 5 and 10
Sure.
years. And I think we've had good luck with that in the past, and that needs to continue because it's going to be hard for the town council to break out of that 1 year thing because you really have to get that right,
Yeah.
And if you get it wrong, then you get lots of help from the state and all that. So I certainly like a 2 or more year budgetary framework, and to the degree that you can have a real conversation about it, I think it's good. But the town council, in the near term, I don't see breaking out of that
Yeah.
that focus on 1 year.
One of the tools that you should have or will have eventually is a comprehensive plan.
Right.
And one of the interesting things to me is how do we go about having a comprehensive plan unless we can come up with a common vision of what we want Portsmouth, because you're projecting what you want Portsmouth to look like down the road 5, 10 years.
Right.
How would you propose to get some kind of vision that people can buy into going forward? Because I think that's necessary to start making some of these budget decisions down the road.
First of all, I think it's important to let the town know what is a comprehensive plan. I mean, most people in town are working on a comprehensive plan to be, well, so what?
Yeah.
They don't know. They're not educated. And I think one of the things that's important for this town council is to get the word out, get the education out, how important a comprehensive plan is for any community. And possibly, I'd like to see a townwide survey sent out, and maybe that's been done in the past, that gets the word out to people on exactly what's important to them. Okay, they've lived in town, whether they're newly here in town or they've been here for a while. What's important to them?
Yeah.
Where do they want to see the town going? What services are important to them? And kind of get a feel and have that done as we go forward writing. And try to invite as many people or volunteers in the process to help develop a comprehensive
Yeah, I think
plan.
John Klimm has been talking about something very similar to that.
Right.
And,
Right.
The idea of everybody in Portsmouth agreeing on anything, whether it's daytime out or not, is probably nil. But the thing is, it would be good to get a lot of people's involvement.
Just get a sense.
Yeah, and a survey, a written survey or an online survey, there again, I think the EDC can help out in that regard.
Sure.
Because there are ways of doing this that doesn't cost a lot of money through an online survey. But I agree with you. I think it's very important. I know it must have been, 10 years now ago that I was on one of the subcommittees when they did the comprehensive plan rewrite. And it was just so frustratingly slow because they farmed it out to for different groups to look at. Everybody put their own thing in, and then slowly it just came together. But it just seems to me, with a little bit better knowledge of how important the comprehensive plan is, that it's a little bit more critical than that,
Right.
and we need to probably press forward in that and get it right.
Right, and I mean, I agree with John that much of it is a communication exercise with the townspeople, so that you get the vision thing representative of as broad a spectrum as you can, and part of that is understanding what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started in this, I thought the comprehensive plan was
Pie in the
nothing
sky.
more than it was just the operating framework that you built your zoning ordinance from, you know, and when you look at it, it's really so much more, but people don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Let me ask you a quick one here about the Glen easement and the Elmhurst demolition. Basically, what's the current status of that, and also the ALT proposal?
well, the status is we're still building the documentation base that we need to go out to bid and to make sure that it's a proper RFP that covers all of the requirements.
This for the demolition?
This is for the demolition
Yeah.
part, yeah. I mean, part of the underlying the fundamental issue that leads into the ALT proposal and all that is how much is this going to cost?
Yeah.
And nobody really knew, and we're trying to figure that out now. So there's been an engineering firm that's been hired to look at all of the things that have to be done. There's environmental impact studies. There's all sorts of engineering studies that have to take place, including how much of the building to take away. Because, you know, one of the
Yeah.
issues there is still the chapel and whether or not it's a viable exercise to, you know,
Yeah.
to keep that.
Anybody that's been in there will say it's a beautiful thing if we could keep it.
Yes.
Right.
But the if we can keep it part is a construction and an
exactly.
architectural issue.
Sure.
And that has to be dealt with. In terms of the discussions with ALT, we've had several meetings stretching over a couple of months since this came up to establish what the town's negotiation position is, and that's pretty much laid out now. John Klimm is leading the charge on that, and it'll come back, you know, before the council to refresh our approach and all this. But I would suspect, and I would certainly support a continuation of John as the town administrator, being the tip of that spear on the negotiation on what is that deal really going to be,
Sure.
and how do we make sure that we are preserving the best interests of Portsmouth.
Yeah, the whole place is such a beautiful facility
Yes.
that we'd be
Yes.
derelict if we didn't take care of that, I think.
Yep.
But, you know, I think it's really great, John, having somebody from the schools actually on the town council. Let me kind of shift gears here because, and ask you, Jim, as the president, do you plan any kind of interface with the school committees or the school department on issues such as, things that you have in common, such as IT, such as purchasing, that kind of stuff? It seems to me they have more professionals there in the school department than we do in the town, and there might be some help that they could provide here.
The answer to that is yes. Yes, we are going to talk with them. They do have an IT staff, very professional, very effective for the school department stuff. I mean, there is absolutely no comparison between the school department IT requirement and the towns. I mean, we're a nit compared to what the schools have to maintain and keep for the kids and for the educational processes and the administration of all that stuff. So yeah, we are going to reach out and ask for some help. We have zero IT experts on staff in the town.
Right.
So we can only get better.
It's a wonderful staff, you know, running all the IT that the school needs, not only central administration, but each school itself, all the way down to the elementary schools. It's a daunting task, but that department, IT department in the school level, they're amazing. They're simply amazing. I would love to see some of that expertise come our way on the town side, or at least get into discussions where we could share them or add to them somehow, where they could start taking a look at some of the IT needs that we have on the town side, and basically identify what are the needs that we need, that we
Sure.
have at the town side. Do we know? What are the needs we have now? So I would see that as a real positive marriage going forward, if they let us have them anyway.
Well, and I realize that the jobs are a little bit different. I
Right.
mean, doing the things for the schools and doing things for town are slightly different, but I think it's the same IT, same
Yes.
information technology.
Yes.
Yep.
There are other areas too, perhaps finance, purchasing, things like that. We'll just have to see how that stuff works out going forward. What about the bigger idea of regionalization of maybe some functions to try to save money here? You know, partnering with, say, Middletown, or what is your take on that?
Always on the table, you know. I mean, it's just too easy and too smart to skip past that
Yeah.
for. Yeah, you know, I mean, we already do it in a lot of ways.
That's right.
You
There's
know,
a
we
lot
have
of-
we have the mutual assistance programs, you know, between police and fire. John Klimm right now is engaged directly with Middletown on some sort of a regional municipal court.
Yeah.
I mean, we've needed that for a long time, and politically we just haven't had the wherewithal to establish a municipal court, which makes it very difficult for other people in town hall to get their jobs done. The building inspector, he can issue a citation if someone, you know, hasn't followed the building code properly. Then what happens?
Yeah.
Nothing. You know. So John's trying to address that, and maybe, you know, the best and most cost-effective way is to team up with Middletown, and he's exploring that. Long overdue, but he's after that. The IT thing you just talked about. You know,
That's another area.
That's a
absolutely.
no-brainer.
In fact, I don't know if people know this, but John actually sits down with the other local administrators for each town. Once a month they have a breakfast, and a lot of the things that he tells us at the council side is developed at these meetings. At least, so he's out there at least getting the word out, exchanging ideas, and I can see in the near future, hopefully, some of these things coming to fruition in terms of regionalization.
Jim, I understand you have a plan to kind of use technology to, at our town council meetings and for the roads program. You want to describe some of those?
The roads program is easy. We just approved an RFP to go out to hire somebody to come in and create a roads program. I thought
What is a
Public
roads
Works,
program?
well, a roads program is a software tool that allows Public Works to accurately maintain a record of all the existing road infrastructure that Portsmouth is responsible for. And that's a big deal in and of itself, because we are very interweaved between state roads, where the state's
exactly.
responsible for taking care of, and our own,
Sure.
you know, local municipal roads that we have to take care of. So we're going to go out and develop a piece of software that helps Public Works better track and manage the roads program. We're all smarter now based on a workshop we had last year, and we'll probably repeat that. We had some experts on road maintenance come in and tell us, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, and here's the array of the costs that you're looking at, depending upon which choice you take, depending upon the condition of which road you're looking at. So how do you put that together into a program and then pick which roads are going to get done when?
In some logical way.
In some logical way that you can explain to somebody, because his road's not on the list. And why is that?
Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of thing. So we're already started down that path. Technology at the council meetings, we sort of got into that a little bit at our first organizational meeting back on December 1st. I would like to see a better use of the website, making town hall wireless. It isn't.
What a concept.
What a concept, huh? So we want to catch up to the year 2000.
Yeah,
if we
I have to
can.
tell you, I sat in on the Code Red discussions with the vendors,
Yeah.
and the guy comes in and of course he says, well, what's your wireless? Well, we don't have any. It's almost embarrassing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people have to understand that these things can save money going down the road.
Well, that's it. I mean, we use a lot of paper, and that drives the cost of the Xerox machines. That drives a lot of staff hours in the town clerk's office.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, we have downsized all of these administrative support functions to about the point where
They don't exist anymore.
Well, they're having a hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah, just keeping up with the meeting minutes. And that's a
Absolutely.
requirement under state law.
Yeah.
You know, we're running a municipality. It's a corporate entity. You know, you have a meeting, you have minutes, and we have a hard time keeping up with that.
Yeah.
So we want to get away from the paper if we can. And Town Clerk Kathy Vera Bowden will be heavily involved in that whole process. But my vision is that everything's done through some sort of a computing device, be it a laptop or an iPad or whatever. Everything that's going to be discussed by the town council, including the backup, is up on a website where everybody can
Absolutely.
look at it before they come to the meeting.
Yeah. There's
I
no
mean-
reason for people to have to come in and get paper.
Right, right.
And
And
I believe the school committee is already manned with laptops,
Yeah.
and a lot of their information they have. You'll notice when you go to a meeting, they all have a laptop in front of them, and they'll just go right to whatever
Yeah.
they're talking about. It's right there, and I think that's something we really need to look at.
You guys don't get laptops? I'm just kidding. Of course you don't. This is Portsmouth.
yeah, no.
Another, I had an opportunity to chat with our state senator, Chris Ariano, last night. How do you plan to kind of engage with our state reps in a better way so we have some kind of influence or at least some kind of idea of what's going on in Providence that's going to have an impact on us? Things like the Secana River tolls.
I think too often, and again, I'm new in the game, but once the elections take place, it seems to me our state leaders kind of go do their thing, and we're kind of left to do our thing. And I'm sure there is obviously communication between both sides, but I'd like to maybe make a more formalized, or at least propose a more formalized meeting, maybe once a month, have a breakfast or some kind of a function with our state leaders, with our state reps, to sit down once a month and kind of just trade ideas. Okay, what's going on your side? What are you guys working up on the state level? And here are the pressing needs that we have here down in Portsmouth that you have our best interest. How can we help each other out? Let's communicate. Let's see what's going on there. Because a lot of times, I think that might be lost a little bit because of their business up in the State House and our business down here.
I think it's a great idea. Jim, you think
Well,
so?
the thought that might cross someone's mind is, you mean you're not doing that?
Yeah, well,
And so, yeah, we need to do that, and we haven't. We haven't. So, I mean,
but that's something that you gentlemen could do. I think.
yes,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
That'd be a real positive
Absolutely. And we've already
contribution.
discussed it with certainly with Chris and Jay Edwards, Ray Gallison.
Yeah.
And they're up for it. Dennis Canario, they'll all get sworn in on January 1st, and as soon as we can, we want to sit down and say, okay, how do we establish that formal communication schema that John's referring to?
Well, a relatively cheap way to do it, because I do it with my 375th subcommittee or steering committee, is coffee.
Yes.
And sometimes I buy the coffee, sometimes somebody else buys
Right,
it.
right.
But it's a good way to have meetings, essentially.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you can find a place where you can chat about stuff. I think that's great. But speaking of the bridge tolls, I mean, is there any hope here, or are we beating a dead horse, or what do you guys think?
I don't think we're beating a dead horse. There are serious questions that have to be addressed. In fact, between the Portsmouth Business Association and the PEDC, Preserve Portsmouth, there have been a number of legitimate, serious questions raised, not the least of which is apparently, and I didn't know this, but apparently because there was no toll in the game back when they did the original environmental impact study 10 years ago, there wasn't any economic and social analysis associated with the rebuilding of the bridge.
Yeah.
They didn't have to be. There wasn't going to be any tolls at that point in time. That was not in the plan. And apparently there is a way to update that environmental analysis now. But the process, they can do an abbreviated process related to the social and economic impact.
Yeah.
So the compelling question is, abbreviate what? You never did it in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a letter right now being drafted. Connie Harding.
I thought that was a
Preserve
great
Portsmouth.
catch by Connie Harding, bringing
Yes,
that up at the
yes.
council meeting.
So that letter will go out. We're going to review it. I'm going to get it to Klimm today, if possible. It just poses that very question. What are you doing here? You need to do the whole thing.
Yeah. And that brings in a federal requirement, as I understand
Yes,
it.
yes, this is a requirement.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we want it done. We want it done right. So I don't think the horse is out of the barn.
Yeah.
I do think that that DOT and the Bridge Authority and they're, you get trapped in this group think sort of a mindset where, look, here's, we watched Michael Lewis put up his buckets of money. This is where the revenue comes in, and the compelling question there is, well, we need to change that.
Yeah.
We need to change that plan.
Well, but I think it's important too to recognize where those two outfits are. They're not the decision makers.
Right.
They're not the ones that told them to do this.
That's right.
And it's the decision makers, I think, that are probably where any kind of change is going to have to initiate.
Yeah, and we're working on that. People have already met with the governor, and those meetings will continue. There's going to be a blizzard of letters going to our elected reps.
In fact, let me ask you that, because I know a lot of people are writing letters specifically saying how this is going to impact them.
Right.
For example, as you know, veterans, many people who live off the island come to the Newport Naval Base for their meds, for their commissary, for that kind of stuff. And a lot of these people are out of state.
Right.
Never mind just across the bridge in Fall River. So this is going to have an impact on them. Do you think these letters will have any impact on anybody? I agree with the idea of writing if they're useful, if somebody will read them.
I would hope that if a person writes a letter to a state legislator or the governor or Michael Lewis at DOT, that maybe somebody up there would actually open it. I think the more letters from people in Portsmouth, our friends in Tiverton, and anybody else who's affected, like those veterans coming over to use the Naval Hospital, well, used to be the Naval Hospital, excuse me, Newport Hospital, but services at the Newport Hospital, will continue to write letters and continue to make phone calls and continue to be kind of a pain in the butt, and keep this thing going. I agree with Jim. It's not a dead issue. It's an unbelievable thing that the state's trying to cram on the East Bay down in this area. And the angrier we are, and the more letters we put out there, as long as it's civil and makes sense, it's got to help. It's got to help.
Okay, so essentially the word we like to get out then is to write those letters.
Absolutely.
To your state reps.
Email.
Tell them how it's going to have an impact on you.
Whatever they can do.
Yeah.
Okay, a final quick question.
One last thing, though.
Okay.
I mean, we got to engage the congressional delegation on this.
Absolutely.
As well, okay, because the real decision maker isn't the governor or the assembly. It's the Federal Highway Administration, and that's what all this is for. I mean, the reason they had those hearings is because they're required.
Well, and I think that's where your letter is going.
Yes.
Hopefully to do
Yes.
that. Very good point. I just want to ask you guys about your support for the 375th and whether we're going to see you guys at the Polar Dive at Island Park on New Year's Day.
I can honestly
Mr. President?
say, I can honestly say,
Can somebody bring in the Speedo, please? No, I'm just kidding.
I can honestly say you will see me
Okay.
at the Polar Dive.
Okay, thank you.
The dress code there still is up for grabs, but and I'm certainly willing to drink a hot drink.
Okay.
And
I'll look for you there then
I won't
anyway.
say any more than that.
Okay. Well, that's probably about the best I can expect. Thanks for joining us today, and I'd like to wish that you and your families have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you. Same to you.
I'd also like to take a minute to thank the Portsmouth This Week team who have made this weekly program possible over the past year. That includes my co-host, Jeff Richard, our sponsor, John Klimm, our producer, Rich Talipsky, and director, John McMahon, and the rest of our crew who helped out with camera, sound, and graphics. That'd be Gary Gump, Bob Hamilton, Ray Keller, Dave Miller, and Jenny Nelson. And our special thanks to our host here at the PEG Studio, Brian Medeiros, as well as other local residents who have stopped by to help us out on occasion. To provide our crew time to enjoy the holidays, we'll be running previous shows on December 21st and 28th. We hope to see you back here on January 5th. From the Portsmouth This Week team to you, have a Merry Christmas and a great New Year. Thank you very much, and I'll see you at the Polar Dive for 375.